79th round of VV Gaming's Losers Bracket podcast. And for the first time ever, we are actually live. Quite an exciting time for us. And we want to thank you all for tuning in this week and joining us. I am joined by my co-hosts, as always. First, I am joined by John Lunsford, also known as Phoenix. John, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you doing, Jason?
Things are great. We've got a great guest today, and of course, we're always joined by our other co-host, the man who runs VV Gaming, talking about, of course, LordJerith, Jerry Prohaska. Jerry, how are you doing tonight, sir?
It is good to be here. It's good to be live. Thank you all for being in attendance. I am excited. And for our first live broadcast of the Losers Bracket, and for those who are asking, yes, we are going to go to a live format for the remainder of the show. But it is my great pleasure to introduce our very special guest. For this episode, I think we're going to talk about all things Major League Gaming. We are joined tonight by someone who doesn't need an introduction, but we'll get an appropriate one anyway. Sundance DiGiovanni, the CEO of Major League Gaming. Sundance, welcome once again to the Losers Bracket.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. It's good to be back, and I'm glad to be a part of this live broadcast.
Well, let's get started. Let's talk about where things were exactly leaving Anaheim. Broke attendance records. How were the stream numbers? I imagine from an event that historically was one of the lowest attending to the biggest, you've got to be a pretty satisfied man, at least coming into Raleigh.
I have this weird affliction where I wouldn't label myself as somebody who's easily satisfied. I'm proud of what we accomplished. But in my mind, the success we had in Anaheim is how I felt we should have started out in Dallas. So while I was happy with the results, I was happy with the turnout. I was very pleased with the overall quality of all three tournaments that we were running that weekend in terms of the storylines. Never satisfied. So there's work to be done.
Well, I know that you are not one who's always satisfied, but let's talk about upcoming for Raleigh, and I want to start with talking about what is going to be a little bit different this time. I know we're going to have some additional side events compared to Anaheim, so let's talk about what's going to be new for those who are wondering outside of the standard Call of Duty, Halo, and StarCraft 2. What additional things can we look forward to at Raleigh?
Well, we've got our good friends at Warner Brothers are working with us with Mortal Kombat. We've been doing some work with them in terms of the social layer. Technology actually powers the social layer within the game. So they're going to be showing up. We're going to be trying to add that in to the fold. And then we've got something which hasn't officially been announced yet, but I've been hinting at it on various forums and via Twitter. We today finalized an agreement with Riot around League of Legends to be making an appearance in Raleigh, and we're very excited to bring that in and give it a test run similar to what we did last year with StarCraft towards the end of the year.
What about Gears of War? I know that a lot of people want to know if there was something that you could do for Gears of War, anything this whole season, or is it something that we will wait?
Well, on the topic of Gears of War, the first thing I want to say is a lot of people have kind of commented on some of the exchanges, the public exchanges that I've had with Cliffy B and Quinn Del Hoyo from Epic. My posts and kind of the back and forth banter is in no way, shape, or form antagonistic. A few people actually thought that I was yanking their chain. Those guys have been incredible. I based on conversations that happened several months ago where I reached out to Epic again and had a concern that they were not going to embrace the community as we had seen happen in the past, unfortunately. I reached out to Cliffy B direct, and he's been a big supporter. And Quinn, who I just mentioned, has honestly been absolutely fantastic. If you're a fan of competitive video games and a fan of Gears of War, if you ever get an opportunity to, I suggest that you shake Quinn Del Hoyo's hand because he has put in a tremendous amount of work on the game with us to make sure that it's something that we can use. And in terms of team-based, shooter-based game on console, I'm incredibly excited for it for next year. And we're looking to see if there's anything we can pull together around Raleigh. PAX is the same weekend, so I believe Cliffy's going to be out in Seattle. But we're trying to figure out if there's something we can give to the true fans who are going to be in North Carolina. But if not, we may have something up our sleeves for not too soon afterwards.
Well, I know the Gears of War community is going to be really happy to hear that after a great beta, and I think everybody that I know in the Gears of War community absolutely loved the game. They're going to be really excited to hear that. Let's talk a little bit about GSL, the Korean players coming to StarCraft. Anaheim was fantastic. Let's talk a little bit about what the StarCraft fans can expect in Raleigh, who's coming, and how your relationship is with GSL as well.
So the Korean player relationship has been fantastic. Obviously, we had Slayers brought their players out last time around the Boxer appearance. Very strong showing again from them. We've seen the Korean players basically run the table, which is expected by some people. But I went public when we first announced this that I didn't think they'd run the table the entire season. I still think there's a chance. Well, unless you consider Huck a Korean player, I think there's a chance for a European or North American player to break through. I still think we'll see that mixed finals before the end of the year because of the fact that there's going to be so much more talent showing up as the Koreans progress and do well and get seeded into pools. They play each other earlier. The scheduling gets a bit tougher. So in terms of who we have coming out for this next time, we've got a few more pieces of the puzzle to sort out. It looks like MVP is not going to be returning to defend his crown. We may have a whole new batch of players, which I think will be interesting, of different races and kind of different skill levels. So we're looking forward to it. There's going to be a couple of big names coming out. Obviously, we've been talking about it a little bit, but what's really kind of interesting is seeing what's happening with teams like EG, even some complexity folks. Folks are doubling down, and they're realizing that one of the big issues is that there's so many small events, right? Like Naniwa, for example, leaving our event, then going over and playing the Blizz Invitation, then going over to GSL. I mean, with no breaks, he's playing high stakes, event after high stakes event. And that's a bigger grind than the Korean players are going through, because Korean players are playing single match. They're not playing series. They're not playing in pool play necessarily, and they're able to prepare for their opponents. So what it's shown us is that next season we need a better structure where there's a bit of a breather for the players, and where the training regimen can really come into effect. But I think in Raleigh you're going to see a continuation. We're going to get big-name Korean players over, and all the usual faces on the European and North American side of things. But it may be the event where we see some of these increased practice regimens break through for folks.
Now, Sundance, I think what you mentioned there for next season, let's jump forward a little bit and talk about next season. Now, I think the kind of cat is out of the bag. A lot of people are aware already that it's going to be a shorter season, probably 4 events. But there's also a lot of talk behind the scenes about having an online component and having the time in between events count for something. Maybe, instead of just 4 events in 40 weeks, so to speak. What can you tell us about that?
Well, we've kind of been stringing together bits and pieces. So Adam Apicella wants to wring my neck because I keep leaking information, but that's kind of that's just the way I operate, is I get things out there and see how people respond to it. But the current plan that we have is to move to a universe where, rather than having 6 events kind of spread out unevenly throughout the year, we're going to move to a system where, going in to next season, we will have a studio facility similar to what you see with GSL in Korea. And that studio facility will be active for 40 to 44 weeks out of the year, doing pro circuit level competition, as well as it will afford us the opportunity to work with publishers to do one-offs around game launches, or to do throwbacks for games when the community, when we reach critical mass. So the idea is that you've got a TV broadcast studio that's set up most likely very similar to what our old main stage setup was, in terms of a nice little bowl, kind of close and up close and personal kind of a vibe. But the real goal is to thread meaningful online qualifiers that are broken down by region into live event studio play that resolves with large-scale events similar to what you see today, but potentially even larger. So what you end up with is 4 seasons over the course of the year, where, so let's say winter, spring, summer, and fall seasons that run for about a quarter each. that are broken into these segments. Teams will be locked for the duration of the season, meaning that team changes throughout each of these quarters would not be allowed. If team changes occur, the team loses all the points, they would jump down. So there's a bunch of mechanisms in there to try and keep things, because they are shorter, but to try and keep things more stable. The most important part of it, I think, for the players and for the fans would be that not only are we going to be talking about $2 million in stipend and prize money, but we're going to be talking about significant investment in what the spectator and viewer experience is. So all this stuff is still coming into play. It's not official. It's stuff that we've kind of scratched out and done the numbers on. And we're scouting locations right now for the studio. There's a few different options which are fairly compelling, and there are a few partners which are really compelling around it. But the goal is for next year is for the balance of power within the world of esports to move to North America completely. To the point where the prize money is large enough that the best Korean players will be playing here for at least part of the year. No matter, kind of what the arrangement that we have with GSL, they will be very respectful, and we won't overlap or cannibalize, but we'll have enough going on here where it's going to be compelling to those folks. Where if we're working with other titles that have European, Scandinavian, or Middle Eastern, even or Asian footprints, that will be in partnership with the folks who are running the largest organizations there. But trying to lead everybody towards what we're doing, because we believe the spectacle of it is going to be fairly tremendous.
Sundance, I think a lot of people hear that, and I can imagine the excitement right now, because that's a pretty to hear the terms "a shift in the balance of power." There are a lot of longtime esports fans who have been riding this train for a long time, who that I think is going to mean the world to, because it's probably to many people. I think even yourself, you said it almost feels like long overdue. Let's do a little bit deeper dive into some of the titles and where we are, because I think a lot of people are looking forward to next year. There obviously are a lot of games, and you obviously have tweeted about, and we're going to start on the PlayStation 3, since you tweeted, I know, recently about asking the question of Street Fighter 4 versus Mortal Kombat. I think a lot of people would want to see both. Where does that sit right now?
So it's fighting games thing is difficult for me on a couple levels, because I have a unrealistic attachment to Tekken, just because that's the first fighting game I played competitively, and I used to take money from Mike Stepso in our old office and the previous business playing Tekken 2 and the Tekken Tag. But the fighting games world is very secular, and there's a lot of barriers. I mean, beyond just Capcom, there are a lot of people who believe that.
Just to correct, though, there's not barriers for Mortal Kombat 9. There's barriers for Street Fighter 4.
Street Fighter 4, Marvel vs. Capcom, Mortal Kombat, I could run tomorrow and have no problems with it. And I'm seriously considering doing work with Warner Bros. Because they've been a great partner. And we saw out of Evo that the game was popular. Some people will say that it's going to only have a temporary success, but those are pretty high numbers, and a lot of people got hooked. And honestly, the game is, from a mainstream standpoint, it's more recognizable from a brand level than Street Fighter. Fighting games community can tell me I'm an asshole, but it's the truth. So, but having said that, to me, because of the way I operate, my goal is, before the end of the year, is to have a relationship back in place with Capcom where, should we want to, we'd be able to run the game, and then try and run something, maybe not for a full 12 months, as I mentioned, but maybe run something across a 3-month period that would be our season for one of their games. See what their response to is, and if they like it, and if the community likes it, reload and go again. You don't have to go back too far to a place where the StarCraft world was very, very skeptical about us getting involved at all, and didn't think we would do it right, and didn't think that we would be a good partner for that community. And that was because they're secular and a little bit insulated in some degrees, but also just because it's the nature of some of these communities.
And I think too, a lot of there was the past between you and Evo, but if I were a Mortal Kombat 9 fan right now today, do I have reason to be optimistic beyond Raleigh that there's going to be Mortal Kombat 9 presence next year?
You know what? Let's see how it does there. Let's see how, unfortunately, because of the nature of the beast, we're struggling with how to get matches out of that venue to viewers at home. But I want to see the game operated, you know, with a little bit of a bigger crowd and in a little bit of a different setting, and kind of run through it and talk to some folks, especially following up on Evo. I think there's no reason for anybody to assume anything when it comes to that game with us, because we have the option of doing it. I think what it comes down to is we've got to make it an intelligent decision. So let's see what the demand for it is. Let's see how, if we put up VODs of the matches where we capture some content, let's see how that's received. And then from there, we'll make the decision. I'm happy to invest in a trial around it, and I'll tell you, based on the numbers I've seen and based on, I mean, the game's being played a lot. We have access to the back end, and we see the match calls. You know, with the exception of PlayStation Network going down, this thing was sold a ton of copies on the PS3. You know, obviously, it's a platform that game runs really well on. So, you know, it had a great opening, and then it hit a speed bump where half of the folks who had it weren't able to play it. Evo, I think, has injected some life into it, and now they're trying to figure out a way to keep the interest high as they develop the next version of the game. So how you do that is by things like, you know, having tournaments go on, creating content rounds. If the community response is there, there's a very good chance you would see us run that game on some level next year. I'll go out on a limb on a lot of things, but in terms of the game selection, you know, with that one, it's a time will tell. But I mean, going back to Gears of War 3, the only way I could see that game not being a major part of what we do next year is if there's no help on, or I shouldn't say, the only way I could see it, Gears of War not being on the circuit next year in a major way, is if we have trouble with the prize money allocation in terms of getting that funded, getting help around that prize money, or there's just for some reason the community doesn't respond to the title. That's when I'm confident that we're going to give up, you know, put a really big push behind that, and hopefully we get some help from the powers that be on the publishing side.
Wow. Okay. So, good news for Gears of War fans, right?
Yep. Great news. I would say great news for Gears of War fans.
Okay.
Hopeful news for fighting games fans. Great news for League of Legends fans. Possible news for Han fans. And don't know what to tell Dota fans yet.
Okay. Fair enough. And so everybody who is listening to this stream, I'm well aware that Sundance is a little low. And I'm going to do the best to lower my voice so you can turn up the volume and hear Sundance. So I'm definitely looking at the comments, and I'm definitely going to talk a little bit softer. And if you guys hear Jason typing or speaking, it's just the nature of the way we have it set up right now. But moving along, Sundance, what does that do to a title like Call of Duty? Now, before you answer, I'm just going to give you my speculation looking on the outside. It feels in some ways, looking at the XP event, that in some way Activision is shifting their focus. And when a big company like that shifts their focus, I question where it sits, especially if you bring these fighting titles to the PlayStation, and if you're saying Gears of War, that can only go one place, and we have Halo, and now we have Call of Duty. I don't want to press you on this, but I got to ask, where does that sit?
Well, I think with Call of Duty, a couple of things that might surprise people. I think with Call of Duty, you know, there's a good chance that if it's back in the way that we have it this year, that it will move to the Xbox. Just because one of the big knocks on what we've been doing is that, well, the numbers would be better if it were on the Xbox. I personally don't necessarily buy that. It sold a hell of a lot of copies on the PlayStation. I think that what we need to do is we need to possibly explore. You know, for example, Treyarch wants us to run settings that are more similar to what you'd find in the, you know, baked into the game in terms of loadouts and streaks and whatnot. Maybe not everything, but but in terms of what their competitive vision of the game is. So, you know, you may find a world where we're forced to shift to Xbox and to adopt some of that, some of those rule sets. Is everybody going to be happy? I don't know. Will the competitive audience spike? Maybe. But, you know, I would love to continue to run the Call of Duty franchise in a meaningful way. Treyarch's been a great partner. Activision's been a good partner. We're probably going to be at the XP event helping them on some level. But even the structure around that, you know, is a bit fakakta in terms of how they've come up with the play-in and everything. But the point is, at least they're trying. You know, I got to give them credit for trying. However, you know, look, in the structure I'm talking about running for next year, and, you know, what the league guys have come up with, we can have multiple shooters on the same platform, but they're not all going to necessarily be at the same level. There will be a primary title. There might maybe two secondaries, and the primary is not guaranteed to be Halo. It's one thing that people need to understand. We've had a great history with Halo, but the Call of Duty opportunity, even at the last event, I felt like you saw Call of Duty in some ways in the room. The energy around that crowd was a little bit stronger than on the Halo side, but the Halo side responded at the end. I mean, when Instinct was just destroying everybody, but it's just, we've got the community can't just have this sense of entitlement. They've got to say, okay, let's support the game. We don't know what's going to happen with this next release of Halo. It's not a Bungie product. Just the handoff of online and matchmaking and what the online experience is going to be from Bungie to 343 has been really interesting. I can't get into too much detail, but it's not what it was. It's a different system, maybe better, but for right now, it's a little bit confused. So I don't know. Right now, like I said, if you had to ask me, I'd be buying stock in Unreal if I could, because I think that they're going to have a game that's going to be a front runner to be the primary title. I think Call of Duty has a chance to continue to grow because we've got support from the publisher. We have Sony support this year. Microsoft has said that they'll support us. And then with Halo, we got to find out what that new Halo universe is going to be, because I'll be honest with you, Reach has underperformed. It's really underperformed.
I was going to jump in there. I think I will agree with you that this has been the easiest time for us to pick up Halo teams because they seem to have a degree of modesty. What would you say to somebody who said to you, Sundance, do you think that it's possible that Major League Gaming suffers from a Halo fatigue? That in some way, with the arrival of StarCraft and the way, I don't want to say it negatively, but the way things have changed, that Halo now almost resets itself. It starts at ground zero. It has to compete with these other communities, with the response, with and not that it's only in the community's hand. Obviously, 343 and Microsoft have a large part to play, but it is not guaranteed for next season, which I think would be the first time in the history of Major League Gaming. Can I say that?
Yeah, well, I mean, the big issue again with the game is that it's, Bungie tried. I don't want to get into the whole. We can have this conversation over drinks sometimes, Sherry, but I don't want to get into the whole innovator's dilemma and what Bungie did or didn't do on the way out the door. But there are people who would argue that the purest version of the game we've ever had was the first one. The second one muddied it. It took us forever to figure out how to play it in our circuit, and we wound up having very few maps and game types. And then the third one came along, and it was the same thing all over again. But then we had Reach, which was the last gasp, but it was a mass consumer product. So we've gone through 4 versions of this IP with significant changes to each, and this one has been the one that honestly has, I think, underwhelmed the hardcore audience more than any other. And even the casual audience, I mean, it got taken to the curb by Call of Duty. And when Gears comes out, I don't know who's going to be playing Reach online, but the numbers are not good right now. They haven't been for a while. So I don't think it's just that MLG has Halo fatigue. I think that the general gaming community and the fan base has Halo fatigue. I mean,
well, that's the reality. Absolutely. No, I think you're right. I think that's.
Kills me to say it, but look, I think Bungie tried to go out with a game that, from a story perspective and the universe, gave you a nice lead into their trilogy. What was always intended to be a trilogy, but the problem is that they almost had their. They did so many great things from it, whether it's adding, the Forge or the theater mode, or just, really kind of, embracing the community and creating a website which provides you with stats and detailed information about your career in game. They did so many groundbreaking things. The problem is that I think, the life cycle and the length of those games and how rushed they were at times by Microsoft, in the end, impacted what was released. And
I hear it in your voice, though. That is, if I were a Halo fan, Sundance, I would be very nervous right now.
I don't think they should be I don't think they should be nervous. I think that what they should realize is that the sense of entitlement that they've got. They were the big guys in the room for a long time, and you know what? Some of them haven't always behaved as well as I would have liked.
Can I challenge you real quick? Aren't you worried that if you make a title like Gears of War, the center room, I think it's safe to say that that is a young community and at times a difficult community as well. How about I ask the question like this? How do you ensure you don't repeat some of the same legacy problems with Halo into whatever the next, and just talking about a first-person shooter title, that sense of entitlement? How do you ensure that doesn't happen again? Or do you need to with something as large as StarCraft in the room? But I think it's worth asking.
Right. So here's the thing: is what everybody. So we started out as a console league, and obviously that's our roots. So we've got, from a pure business standpoint, we have 2 titles in League of Legends and StarCraft 2. I could build my entire business around those 2 games.
Could you say that one more time? Because I tell this to a lot of people in our organization about, why PC gaming has arrived in a way that, again, evokes a time in the past. Say that one more time, please.
So I could build the next 3 to 4 years of my business completely around League of Legends and StarCraft 2. And now the reason I could do that is because in North America, no matter what anyone wants to say, ever since CPL and WCG, never really got it, but in North America for the last 5 years or so, there's been a giant void. There's been a lack of premier titles that got the competitive community excited because StarCraft, Brood War didn't have the staying power here that it had in Southeast Asia, right? Dota, while big, didn't have the engagement or wasn't accessible enough to a broad enough audience. Han, same thing. Han's got a ridiculous learning curve. It's hard for people who don't understand it to watch. But Blizzard really worked well with us to ensure that we had the tools that we needed to at least have a fighting shot. Riot has been built literally from the inside out by people who get this. Now, you might not think the game is the superior title. Guess what? There are millions of people who don't seem to give a shit. They play it competitively and they love it because of the way that it's been crafted and because of the way that they engage the community. So much so that Han's going to free-to-play. So much so that Dota's going to give away $1 million to try and get everybody to focus on their game.
Can I jump in real quick on that?
Yep.
Can I ask you a professional question?
Yep.
Do you think if Dota launched a tournament for $250,000, it would probably be just as effective?
I think if Dota put time into running 1 or 2 decent-sized events, in the U.S., Europe, and then had some sort of a spectacle, similar to what Blizzard's doing right now, they wouldn't have to spend a nickel. They could get partners who would subsidize most of it, and all they'd have to put up is a little bit of marketing money.
See, that's where just to jump in there, that's where I, as a business guy, I come in and I say, I am not optimistic about a company who throws $1 million in when, one, I think if they had done 250,000, they would have been just as effective. And two, a point you make, I think, is true. You could have spread the wealth, right? You could have generated hype, multiple markets, multiple places. All of a sudden,
the structure of this Dota tournament has people who have a history of playing in the competitive, we'll say esports because it's on PC, but the folks that I've spoken to who for the last 13 years have been living this world are so put off by the structure of the Dota tournament. They're so put off by the idea that the folks being invited have had access to the beta and it's not a play your way in thing.
Thank you.
They're just so put off by it because what they're saying is, and the Counter-Strike fans out there will know before I even say it, it's Source 1.6 again. It's Valve just doing what Valve does.
Yep.
And you know what? They can because people let them. If you let them, they're going to keep doing it. And they see the pressure because, look, League of Legends is the primary title in that universe right now, and not based on anything other than how many people play it, how much revenue it generates. It's a big money maker. Okay, a free-to-play game that's churning cash, that has Chinese money behind it, and has guys who are in charge of marketing and the competitive game side of it who will invest. My God, where were they 10 years ago when I started my business?
I agree. No, I mean, I think you're hitting the. This brings me to another cultural question, and I think we've spoken about this before. As we talk about this for those that are listening, I mean, I think the one big difference is the focus that one has to have is not, and you talked about some of the critique. You can argue that, in League of Legends, you can't deny it's not the same skill level as Han, certainly not skill level as Dota. But from a business perspective, right? And I think we talked about the Korean players, and I think you said it best when we spoke about this. You said the Korean players are about the business, American players are about the fame. And that huge distinction makes it very easy for players to miss the big picture. Anyone who follows League of Legends, what you just said, the formula is perfect, the stream numbers are huge, and I think for an organization like Major League Gaming, who has to demonstrate a return on investment, this is a no-brainer. Is it safe to say it's a no-brainer to include League of Legends next season?
Especially when Riot wants to work with us. Like I said, we're looking at Han. We'll look at Dota as well if Gabe ever returns my email, and we'll be into it. I mean, we had folks out in Anaheim with us around Han. The issue I have there is that I have a chance with League of Legends to be the big fish in the North American pond, as it were, and to work with the folks in Europe and Scandinavia. So I'm going to jump all over that if I can actually control my own future there.
All right. You know what I'm looking at the fans. I want to switch gears if I can, unless you want to finish that thought.
Nope. Go ahead.
I'm going to put you on the spot. Don't hate me, but is there Mortal Kombat 10 that is definitely in the works?
I can't comment on that, but look at the numbers. If you've ever bought two versions of a video game, look at the sales numbers, and you can answer that yourself.
All right, so you guys who are Mortal Kombat fans, you're going to have to read between the lines. Sundance is not allowed to comment on that, but if I were a betting guy, I would say that you did sign an all-studio agreement with Warner Brothers. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So for those of you out there who analyze business, all-studio tells me two things. Mortal Kombat 10, and you have to say a word, Sundance, and there must be other interesting IPs in that studio. Can I ask you, are there other interesting IPs in that studio?
You can ask me anything, but I may not always answer.
Are there other interesting IPs in that studio?
I'm sure they've got something else going on.
You are so not going to say anything, are you?
No, I'm not. Sorry, not tonight.
All right, fair enough. Then I got to find somewhere else to get you to talk about things.
A drink or two, and then
I'll cling my glass. Do you hear the ice clinging in the background? Have a drink with me, sir. Let's go to something we talk about a lot, and that is what you need from the community. And I think, fortunately, we have StarCraft 2 fans as an example to point to. And I want to make it clear, you've said it before on the show, and I'll say it to you, StarCraft 2 is not the end-all, be-all of anything. But what are some of the things from some of the titles you talked about, Gears of War fans? I mean, you certainly hinted Mortal Kombat and Super Street Fighter. Super Street Fighter's international draw. You have to look at international numbers. If you had a choice between those two titles and you could get Super Street Fighter, I think nobody would disagree. That would be a no-brainer. But for those who are not StarCraft, they're not Super Street Fighter, what can they do? What can those communities do to maximize? You know the question. What can we do to make it end up on the pro circuit? We're rabid fans. We want it to be there. What do we do? How do we influence? How do we Sundance put pressure on the publisher to do the things that you need them to do to make it a really good fit for MLG? So help them understand your business.
Well, I think the thing that everybody needs to understand is that there are several in established communities. There are lots of voices, and some voices are heard and some aren't. But at the end of the day, and I don't mean this to be deflating because it's not meant to be. If there's a community out there that's a strong community that wants a game to be, worked on in a way that can work for competitive presentation. I'm not saying even necessarily on the pro circuit, but something we could have off on the side and people could, have a good time competing around, whether it's a rhythm game or Smash or anything. At this point in time, I think, the thing that's been made very, very clear to me again and again by both publisher, developer, and finance, people in the finance world around video games is, blog posts and emails and forum posts, they are a body of work that is, for the most part, unseen by the higher-ups within an organization. Now, there are exceptions to that rule, and Blizzard is one. The senior-level folks over there are very much plugged in and are read more than they should maybe sometimes. But it doesn't drastically change what they do. It doesn't make them add things like LAN mode. It's just because they have a very strong attachment to their product. So the Halo community, I'll use the Halo community and then I'll use the Gears community. The Halo community bitched, competitive community around Halo bitched and bitched and bitched with each iteration of the game that Bungie didn't get it. And I would argue that, by the end of it, they had more to complain about than they did in the beginning.
No, you're right. I agree. I think that's actually true, yeah.
So did Bungie listen to what they were hearing and make the game less competitive? Did they not hear? Did they not care? No, they cared. I mean, we went out and tested the last 2 games with them in their labs. But the thing about it is, again, at the end of the day, it's a business, and they're game developers, and in their mind, they have a craft and an art, and they've got something that they're creating, and so they're going to do it the way they think is best.
And it's fair to say that Microsoft has a different focus. I think that's fair too, right?
Microsoft makes toothpaste. We've had this
Thank you.
conversation before.
But to be fair, so does Activision.
Yeah, Microsoft.
You don't have to say that.
Microsoft may make fewer flavors than Activision does, actually. But then we'll go to Gears. So with Gears, like, for example, so many vocal community members, younger community than even Halo, which is their babies, right? Very vocal, sometimes obnoxious. Some spokespeople, some groups such as BBB and Mason who come out and they're respectable and there's a lot of thought. But again, you can't lead with your heart when you're trying to communicate to somebody who's got to operate a business and expect it to be as impactful as just a clear and concise argument in terms of how you can retain users for a longer period of time and extend relative sales as it may be around.
Before you do what you just did right there, I want to throw one thing out there, Sundance. Mm-hmm. Sorry to interrupt you, but there is a part also about the VV Gamings, the Amazons, Arctic's work. When you talk about specifically the influencing factor, because that's got to be a part. Whenever you're a niche audience, which to be fair we are, we have to highlight the influencers. And when you lead with your heart, you can't influence. I think that would be a fair statement.
But when you lead with your heart, here's what you're telling them. I'm going to spend my $60 even if you make a shitty game.
Thank you. Say that one more time, sir, right? Exactly.
Yeah. So if you lead with your heart, what you're telling them is no matter what they do, you're going to buy their $60 game. You will complain about it more than anyone else, but then log more hours than anyone else. I've had this conversation at 5 different studios. Right? It's always about the guy who pisses and moans the most is the one who logs the most hours. And it's the vocal minority, right? It's like you're the loudest guy in the room, you got the most to say, but you're really saying the least. So my point is that, I think Arctic is an example of a guy who's smart, great player, great brand, really intelligent. And the thing is that he's just consistent. He's always talking about it.
Correct.
Now, what that does is that gets the other community members to talk about it. And that's useful within a community because what it does is when the game does come out and when an organization like Major League Gaming is saying, should we push on this because we had a kind of shitty experience with this community in the past. Or, they seem to be getting it together. So then we push and we make a business case and we show people how they can potentially extend profit cycles, how they can generate more incremental revenue over time, how the content that's created around the game can be distributed and licensed globally. They're more likely to listen because, to be honest with you, as passionate as I am about this, I lead with business cases. So while it's important and it's effective and it's impactful, especially, and I'm going to mention him again, Quinn at Epic, I'm telling you, shake his hand and ask if you can have a hug if you're a Gears fan when you see him at an MLG event. Because this is a guy who started out watching streams and the conversations I've had with him, he watched Rainbow live at one of our events. I was like, really? Who watched Rainbow?
Hey, hold on. We had a back-to-back Rainbow first. Stop.
Believe me.
We did. We were watching Rainbow.
In the history of MLG, if you can remember when Rainbow was there and when we had our MLG map in the game, you're an old timer, right?
That was
Quinn's an old timer.
Wasn't it? That was 2008, wasn't it?
I'm just saying, everything has happened between then and now. That's a lifetime. Okay. Right?
A lifetime ago. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. So, but Quinn was there. Quinn's watched streams. Quinn's down, and and Cliffy's down, and There was a time when Cliffy was like, it's cool, but whatever. But, these guys, they see it because there's a reason to. Because when we go to them and we say, look, not only is there a strong business case, but look at how passionate the community is. And they're like, wow, they are. And they know the game really well. That's interesting. So I'll say that Epic has gone from a business that, or even earlier this year, I thought could give a shit, to being somebody who's really engaged around it. So it's good. But again, you've got to understand that it's not, it's not the standard where a company is going to be sitting there reading their forums and saying, they're right. We totally have to change this. It does suck. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of effort. And guess what?
Yeah.
Half the time it's a suggestion. Go read the forums from some people who are like, no, that's fucking stupid. Don't do what the competitive players say. That's going to ruin the game. There's usually 90 to 1. It's one post in favor of doing something which tweaks the game a little bit more competitively and 90 against.
No, I know we've talked about that before, that you always have to argue for the masses.
Yeah.
But, since we're talking about it, let's go. Actually, I really have a bias toward Gears, and I want to talk about two other games that we haven't talked about tonight that I think we should. Let's go back to Blizzard, and let's talk about your great relationship. In Game Informer earlier at the beginning of this year, there was a comment that Diablo 3 would not really be competitive, but there's been a lot of multiplayer coming out. Any thought from Major League Gaming that Diablo 3 is a title that they want to take a look at, or that you want to explore, that you know anything about? Like, maybe it is dead on arrival. It's going to be clearly just, a single player that Game Informer hinted at. But Game Informer's been wrong in the past. So you have a good relationship with Blizzard, and I think you've mentioned Diablo 3 once somewhere. So what do you think?
Yeah, I think Diablo's going to be one of those interesting ones because the way they've structured it and the way it's built and with the always on, I don't know. I'll tell you what. Supporting a title, being a publisher and truly supporting a title as a competitive gaming or esports platform is difficult, right? Like, you don't just birth it, put it into the wild, and then stop. I mean, Blizzard has BattleNet. They've got an in-house staff that's aligned around the activity. It's interesting, right? So when you look at Diablo, I tell you what, like, this is a game that gets so many guys in my office, completely tweaked out when they just look at it. And some of them were at BlizzCon and played it last year, and we're gonna have a chance to look at it this year at BlizzCon. So I just don't know. I mean, is there room for that? Of course there is. If the game plays well enough and the audience responds well enough to it, is Blizzard really concerned about that? I don't know. They might be wanting to focus on making StarCraft 2 work. I mean, look, they walked away a little bit from Arena. They
walked a lot away from Arena, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. It was, exactly. They ran. But why wouldn't they? It underperformed. Look, again, this. I do this because I love it, but it's still a business, right? And what those guys do, they do because they love it, but it's even more of a business for them, right? Because they've got corporate overlords who, I think, to be honest, make mine look like pussycats, right? These guys have, they're like the GDP of several small countries, what they've got to produce every year. So, I don't know. We'll see. Diablo is exciting, though. I'll tell you what we have seen looks freaking amazing.
Well, I would imagine it would. Well, but I asked because Jason here is a Diablo 3 fan. So, Jason, I gotta give you a chance to hop in and throw in your thoughts.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, one thing that I was just curious about, I mean, in regards to Diablo, they did just announce you're going to need a constant internet connection for the game. They did just announce that you're going to have the ability to sell items as well for real money in the game. Does that influence your decision at all? I mean, is that going to be...
The constant internet connection we deal with StarCraft, and we've got around that before. It's the in-game economy. I mean, look, in the past they've turned their back on it and seen other businesses built. I mean, literally seen businesses built on that activity. So, what's it going to turn into in the real world once they put that out there? I'll tell you what, I don't know, but if anybody's going to put enough time and thought and effort into it to making sure that it doesn't completely suck, I think it'll be Blizzard. It's been a long time since Blizzard has crapped the bed. They are an impressive organization.
I think you're being optimistic.
Yeah, do they always get it right? No.
No, I was going to say that you're optimistic, that I think, I think to some level you're being optimistic in the way that a CEO of Major League Gaming has to be optimistic. So I'm just going to call you a little on that one. I'm going to come back to an old favorite, and I'm going to talk about we all know the Wii is going to have a new console. And, I fell in love with them. I'm a rabid Brawl fan, and Alpha Zealot and others. I think it makes business sense to me that you have the Wii platform, next generation Wii there. It doesn't hurt, doesn't kill it. Do you have anything to share as far as someone who probably has more insider information than I do about what that chance ever is? Because obviously there was a horrible moment. I dropped a bunch of players and you dropped Brawl. So what's the future, Brawl?
Well, I'll be honest with you, I don't know. I really don't know. The most interesting and compelling group that we ever worked with are the mighty fine folks at Nintendo. Again, we got out ahead of ourselves, and if Dallas hadn't been such a shitstorm, we would have had those throwback titles. Right? We would have had special stops.
Hold on, though. I got to call you on that. You didn't make it sound like that, and I said it, and you didn't back me on this one. But they did a lot of damage, and I think you better, because I've been like the guy they hate because I keep saying you guys messed it up, and you kind of tempered that as a good CEO would. But you just said that if we hadn't had that shitstorm, so I got to call you on it. It was that shitstorm that really killed it, wasn't it?
It was. That was a huge part of it.
Thank you.
I mean, that was a huge part of it. But for reasons that I don't think anybody listening will necessarily accept or want to hear, or But what I can say is, so we then got into this year, and it became about executing, and we had problems with our first event, obviously, and everything went under a microscope, and I had to invest more money in making my biggest games work. So people may not realize this, but Anaheim was the first time we had 2 true HD streams for StarCraft. In Raleigh, we'll have 3. The hardware upgrades that were necessary to make those happen, and yes, the third one is for Call of Duty / League of Legends, because they're going to be sharing a stream. Those investments are huge investments. Those investments are what the cost of doing throwback events and our pro circuits would have been. I had to do that. I had to get the core product to a point where it was stable. My plan, to be honest with you, was to have some sort of a Smash event in our Orlando stop this year, because we've historically done well there with Smash. There have been no throwback events, and the big reason for that is twofold. Number one, had to execute everything properly. Number two, the primary game that we were interested in doing it around didn't go out on the highest note. Am I saying it's dead? No. Am I saying it can come back? Absolutely. The plan I have is going to be really interesting, because I've just been watching all the work Alpha's also been doing. I've been watching Unity. I've been watching the grassroots stuff, and I think there's a way that we can do something where we've got a similar relationship within the Smash world as we do with, let's say, GSL, where there's grassroots, kind of accredited grassroots events where people come out of and get an opportunity to play higher stakes, let's say. So we don't have to do all the heavy lifting. But, again, we'll see. I still have a bit of a soft spot for the game, because I still remember back in the day, Ken and Isaiah, and there were some great moments. It was the loudest crowd back in the day. Smash was our StarCraft.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, when obviously I didn't go to Anaheim, and, sitting at home and watching, iPad signs, which interests me as a guy who deals with chief learning officers, uses of iPad. I showed one of the StarCraft streams you had to one of the chief learning officers to show them like how iPads can be used in a corporate setting to actually be like a makeshift sign, and really got their interest. And it ended up being that the VP there of learning, who worked for the CLO, actually was a big StarCraft fan. And I think the game, is that. But going back to Brawl and something you said, that passion came with that price of, maybe because the community was so close-knit, they shared prizes, whatever the case may be. I guess the question I was really asking, I want to come back to again, does the new Wii platform mean anything or not? I mean, you say it's always reason to be hopeful, and that's kind of your job, but let me put the test to you like this. Anything about the new Wii platform that interests you? I'm going to take you off the hook. Sorry, Brawl fans, but I'm going to take them off the hook.
There's potential. I can't comment on it.
You have to say that. You know that.
I think there's potential. I'm not. Look, I don't know if the people understand. Really quick sidetrack before we keep moving. I don't know if fans understand the complexity of the Smash IP. Okay, by complexity I mean, like, you look at Marvel Capcom, that's two licenses basically jammed together so the IPs work. And you're going to get the Tekken and Street Fighter IP that's going to come out. The Smash IP, it goes across so many different games in the Nintendo universe that come out of different studios. There's a reason why you'll never see an officially licensed Smash Brothers or Brawl. Or you won't see a T-shirt with all the characters on it for a reason, and not an officially licensed one, because you'd never get all the signatures necessary, right? It's been this grandfathered IP that's existed because it was a passion project by somebody who had enough power within Nintendo to get it done, but it's not easy. So add that to the mix. I bet a lot of people didn't know that.
That's fair. I mean, I think that's like saying, Uncle Woody doing a few Brawl shirts is not going to be on the radar screen. Major League Gaming holding Brawl is going to be on everyone's radar screen. And if it's looking like something popular, they're going to come knocking on your door, wanting to share the cut or asking why you didn't have a specific right. Is that correct?
Right. Well, think about it. Think if you created one of the 40 characters that can be played in the game, and you want a cut, you have every right to come asking for it. I'm not saying. I'm just saying you just got to understand it's always more complicated than it appears. But anyway, but again, we'll see. I think Nintendo is. There's the next set of boxes in general are very interesting from what I've seen and what I've heard, and I think Nintendo once again is going in a different direction than other people are. But I don't know.
I'm going to get you in trouble with these conversations, I think. I wonder if sometimes you got to answer thinking if Nintendo's listening, I better not say the wrong thing if there's hope.
I would be like, whenever you ask me about something, I'll tell you there's hope.
All right, so I'm going to recap for our audience. PC, StarCraft, League of Legends, we can we'll call that 95th percentile. We can count on those things. There are things that go wrong, but that's a pretty good guess, right? Right.
League of Legends will be in Raleigh. I haven't signed the piece of paper, but unless I hit my head, I'm pretty sure I'm going to. StarCraft 2 is going to be the centerpiece for the foreseeable future.
2012 even. I'm sure there will be no shortage of StarCraft.
Right, correct. And
you've hinted tonight a lot, just to recap, that you really like Gears of War. Like that really, and it sounded to me like even more so than Halo or Call of Duty. And I don't want to. I mean, to be fair, you'd say that.
What I like is, I'll be honest with you, I've got a man crush on Quinn Del Hoyo, and I've got, much respect for Cliffy, and I'm going to buy him several drinks. I think those guys did what they could in a window of opportunity to give us some things that we really needed. We went to them. It's the standard story. We had a huge list, and I said, pick 5 things. And we picked them, and damn, Quinn got us just about all 5. So, and that's just the opening salvo. So I'm excited about the opportunity to continue to work with those guys, and they're good guys. You know what I mean? And they really, really love their game, and they really, really want to give the community a great experience. So you got that going for you if you're a Gears fan.
Okay, one more thing.
On the Halo side, I'm concerned about the future there. I don't know if the community is not going to stand by Reach. We don't have much of a leg to stand on. Sorry for the double use of stand, but we just don't.
Hold on, wait. Now I got to stop you.
Yep.
So there is deep doubt about 343 and Microsoft, and the question that you're wrestling with is, one, you're not confident that the Halo community is really happy with Reach, and you're not confident that Halo and 343 are going to make a game that really comes anywhere near dealing with anything competitive. Am I understanding that right?
I'm uncertain. I'm concerned because I'm a huge fan of the Halo franchise. The most established stars that we've built are Halo players. The history of the league's Halo competitions is long and storied, and it's something I love. what do I do? Do I go back to Halo 3? How do I fund that? How do I justify that? Do I go back to Halo CE? I mean, if people don't want to show up or don't want to watch Reach and don't want to play Reach, I don't know what to do. But hopefully some things that 343 is working with us and around the playlist and stuff and tuning the game, maybe we can get some things taken care of. I don't know, though. I'm just concerned because I always knew that I had that in my pocket. I always knew that I had a really strong community that's really supported the game, and as much as they would complain, they would come out. Now with Call of Duty, I honestly think that Treyarch has been a fantastic partner as well. Jay and Vaughn have been great over there, and they really, really, really want to continue this run. So what's going to come out of Infinity Ward? Anybody who's in the beta knows.
I was going to say, Treyarch doesn't continue on to Modern Warfare 3, though, does it?
No, it doesn't. They're not working on that.
So let me ask this then. The way you seem to be structuring this is we've got, the RTS, the MOBA on PC. We have the first-person shooter on the Xbox 360. We have fighting games on the PS3. Is that a model that you think would be good?
Oh, that sounds sexy to me. I don't know, but
all right, fair enough. If we take this outside of just the titles, now we look at the other things that Major League Gaming is doing. You have Major League Gaming going into a subscription model. You have silver and gold accounts. Let's talk a little bit, for those who may not be aware, what a silver, what a gold account offers, and what your goal is. What do you want us all to do? What can we do besides buy gold accounts, which I encourage everyone who's a competitive gaming fan to purchase those. But talk about the differences, a quick overview, and how that helps you.
So basically, anything that you can do on our website, you can do without a membership, right? There may be more advertising, there may be certain limitations or caps or time windows that come into play. Silver membership is everything that's in the gold membership, but it costs more money and you don't get the discounts. So to put it into perspective, the Astro discount alone is, pretty much pays for your membership if you use a gold membership to buy from Astro. There will be other discounts added in there over the course of the year. When our Mad Catz controller comes out, we're working with several folks who are retailers who aren't even in the gaming space to add discounts, whether it's movie theaters and restaurants or whatever. But the most important thing is that the core experience around your profile and your activity within the Major League Gaming universe is kind of in that profile. And the system has been delayed in rolling out. The Agora guys have been working on it for some time, and we were supposed to roll out the first set of features in April, but it came out in July, so we're a little behind there. But the point is, and I've said it before, and I've taken flack for it in some places, we need to show that we're important enough to a semi-significant sized audience for them to shell out 8 cents a day or $30 a year or $10 a quarter. It changes the way you're viewed in the business world to have a subscription-based business with recurring revenue. It would mean things like I could put aside a discretionary fund for community tournaments and put prize money up for the folks who are doing work, let's say, with Smash. I could have an RFP process whereby which people who want to get funding for their web shows or for their college events or charity events could make requests, and coming out of this pool of finances that's generated by membership, I could support that while raising prize money, while throwing more varied events, while improving the spectator, player, and kind of
just not to interrupt you real quick. Does this kind of wall allow for other games that can't make it on the circuit?
Yes.
So, okay, you know where I'm going. You get this, right? Because
So the question you've asked me about, and this is going to be a feature that's added to the registration.
Oh, I'm glad you're talking about this. By all means, sir, please. And by the way, spill your guts if you don't mind.
So if you go to buy a membership, and it should be by next month, and there'll be drop downs. It'll say, one of the things we want to know from our members is, what game would you most like to see a throwback event for? And this will be something that'll go on. We'll do these, and then we'll email and send things out, and there'll be private forums. And we'll and what grassroots organizers do a good job around this game. Point us to examples of recent, competition footage. And if none, point us to old competition footage. It'll give us an opportunity to allow the communities, how we always say, like, well, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? Well, tell us. We'll put some of the money that you've given us towards it. 10,000 people tell us that they want to see a Smash tournament. They'll take a part of this discretionary fund that's generated out of the membership dues of those 10,000 people, and we'll help fund some. It's all I can do. I can't make it any more. I can't. It's like I'm giving you the keys to the kingdom, and as much as I can. And I'm sure people will take issue with it and say that I'm bad for the community, but I'm not trying to be. I'm trying to put people's money to work where they want it to see it put to work. So who knows? We may even see a Halo CE tournament before the end of next year if people vote for that. But and we allocate some cash towards it. But I don't know. I don't know how it's going to go. I don't know what the uptake is going to be. I'll tell you, we've sold well over 10,000 memberships so far with very limited marketing outside of just our core audience around the event. When we're signing up a couple hundred people a day, but I need to sign up 500 people a day. So I'm not quite there yet. So hopefully when our marketing campaign really kicks in, we'll see those numbers go up.
You covered a lot of ground there. I want to focus a little bit too on the sports genre, NHLs, the NFLs, the NBAs. From my perspective as VV Gaming, to sort of preface this, I know that there's a lot of betting that goes on in those games, and that makes them less interesting.
I can, not to cut you off, but I can say right now, there's a very dim future for sports titles within the MLG universe.
Say that again?
Dim future for sports titles within the MLG universe.
Okay, we'll leave it there then. I was just going to say, I have no like for sports titles for all you sports fans out there. The Virgin Gaming's, the BeyondGaming.net, the Salon, I could go on, the Game Dunzos or Dunzo, none of these interest me. And, I find it to be something that does not work for me. So to those of you that are sports fans, like you heard it from him, dim future. I think there's a future for him. I think what Virgin's trying to do with the poker model might work for a little while. But hold on, I'm going to call you out. You know as well as I. When you subsidize the losers, you can't win. That's worse than Amway. Yes or no, sir? Yes or no? Amway model.
It might work. I don't know. Maybe they figured something out that I've missed.
You are so lying. You are so lying.
No, I'm not. Look, I think there's a bright future there for somebody. But it's
okay,
not,
all right.
It's
all right.
Here's the deal. When EA got out of the Madden Challenge business, it went away, right? And why'd they get out of the business? Because no matter what they do, you're going to buy their game. No reason for them to have that extended part of their business. So I can't do it anymore. I can't just fund things as a passion play, as a pet project. It's got to be sustainable. So for me right now, the way I look at things, unless 10,000 people who've purchased a membership or 5,000 people who purchased a membership say, shit, do FIFA, do NHL, do NBA Jam. I can't just write checks. I can't just piss money away anymore. And I don't intend to. At least not that way. I'd rather take a big bet on something new than an old bet that's a long shot.
No, I hear you. I got to make a editorial correction. Aaron Hassel just called me out for lumping BeyondGaming.net in with Virgin Gaming and the others. So to you, Aaron, Tony and your group started that model there and you changed. So I'll admit you guys are changing and trying to find your niche. So I withdraw from that. All right, next question.
Virgin's the one that's focusing on sports just because it's all they can do at the moment. They got the EA thing going on. So they're not going to work. You so know they're not going to work. No, I didn't say that. But and the other thing is like with regard to Beyond and they're Playhem and the folks that are out there. I think I'm not saying we do it better than anybody else. What I'm saying is that our systems are antiquated, and we're trying to get better in terms of what we do just in a general online competitive space that's not tied to the pro circuit. But what we have that no one else has is we have the pro circuit, and it generates a shitload of attention. So it's, I've got to go to my strength. We ran sports games on those pro circuits, and they underperformed.
By the way,
I love the Madden dudes. They're fucking fun. Okay, they're like, you want to play with somebody who like just have a hell of a good time. Those guys enjoy themselves. They're really good, and they're great personalities with great stories. The problem is that universe, even though the game sells a ton, is very limited. So the universe doesn't spread out. It's not. You can't get 2 steps to the left, 2 steps to the right, and still be talking to people who care about it. We've seen it work with Halo. We've seen it work with with StarCraft. We've seen it work even with Call of Duty to an extent this year in terms of the growth of the awareness, the activity. I mean, people don't realize this. We've helped sell units on the PlayStation 3.
No, I mean, that's true. You did. I think Call of Duty was a really good, and correct me if I'm wrong, but making the argument of influencers was really what you were able to demonstrate by Call of Duty on the PlayStation 3. Is that a fair thing to say?
Yes, it was.
That thing. Let me address some of the. I want to get to the community who's saying a lot of things. I first want to say out there to Sir Scoots from Evil Geniuses, who just said, I'm really glad to see you guys doing it live. I'm going to throw a plug out there to Sir Scoot, Slasher, and DJ Wheat live on 3.
I'll give Slasher a shout out.
I saw your tweet today. That's right. Slasher lives, I don't know, in the Guns N' Roses era with Hair and Quake. So I'm not going to pick on Slasher anymore. But I got to give Slasher credit. He said Mortal Kombat, Jerry, Mortal Kombat. And he did influence us picking up Rio, who took second at Evo. So, but I also want to say to
Slasher's a smart guy.
He is. He works for you, sir.
Well, I'm not saying I'm smart.
Well, I was going to say, though, it takes a good leader to pick good people, and Slasher is one of those people who...
But also, just really quickly, while you're on the topic of Live on 3 and Wheat and Scoot, I finally had an opportunity to have a conversation with Marcus in Anaheim where I told him that I've been a fan of his since the beginning, and working with him is great, and meeting his family and seeing his kid at the event, having so much fun. If you are not a fan of DJ Wheat, you are missing out. I'm going to be honest. The guy busts his fucking ass and puts on a great show for people. You may not like his approach sometimes.
I disagree. I got to cut you off. I think I refer to weekly, if not multiple times a week. Marcus wrote a blog on Team Liquid called Life of a Caster. Everybody needed to hear that. I think it was one of the best contributing pieces I've read in a long time. When Marcus talks about his life as a caster, he spoke about having a day job, getting up, not making any money at this. I mean, I may be bold here, but I mean, we add value to you, and we're not in the equation of paying us for being the losers bracket. But you understand the value we have for you, and we understand the value you offer us by coming on the show. We're not there yet. Right?
I like it because you let me talk about shit I'm not supposed to, so that's all good.
Yeah, we like that too, so I think that's a good synergy. But I mean, Marcus is one of those rare talents that come along that...
Great guy. And I think in Scoots too. I mean, a lot of people give Scoots doing this as long as anybody, and I mean, the recent stuff they've done with EG House, and I mean, shit, talk about a guy who's doubling down, expanding the roster, bringing people in. Just, it's the point of it is, I guess, the big picture of it all is like, I don't want to see the secular bullshit continue. Like, people need to understand that, this is your universe. Like, we're not going away. Scoots is going to be doing this, and Marcus is here, and you've got your thing, and you're stuck with me. And
right, we're not going anywhere.
Like, might as well work together.
Yep. I mean, no one is going to deny, and I've said it before, I'll say it again. Evil Geniuses, Alex Garfield, Sir Scoots, the whole team over there, the staff, the quality. They are the New York Yankees of North American esports, and anybody who is in this space respects them for that. They have, I think of other up-and-coming organizations, when they look to a model, they're looking to EG. They're looking to that model of how you do things. And, you know, I think a lot of us that have come through this space, you know, we look to how other people are doing it. I was lucky. I say this. I mean, I tell people this all the time. You know, I grew up in the Bromberg era, the era between you starting the company and you having to not be in the front and center. And I had to build a model that inadvertently allowed me to generate esports fans that Complexity and EG and Pandemic, who is now not around, they didn't have to do that. They didn't have the difficult situation I had under Bromberg. And I don't want you to talk about your predecessor, but you know as well as I do, there wasn't spaces for VV Gamings. There wasn't
space for EG either.
Yeah, right. That's true. I mean, you're right. That's absolutely true.
The problem is that that's why people hate me, is because I inherited the sins of the previous guy. You know, whatever. I don't care. The point is, it doesn't matter. It's in the past. If you live in the past, guess what? It doesn't matter. Go play. Sorry, Slasher. Go play Quake. Or how about Counter-Strike? How about that? We'll go even deeper.
Now you know what, Sir Scoots is going to throw pies at me for this. I want you to know it's a long.
I get an opportunity to mess with both Scoots and Slasher in one sentence. I've got to jump on it. You know, I have no anti-Zerg comment, but I can't kind of do the trifecta and do the entire live on 3cast. But it's just like, I don't know, man. I don't know. You know, it's guess what? It is a business. You know, people who complain about, oh, they're doing it for the money. Yes, some people are doing it for the money. People you wouldn't expect are making money doing things you never thought of. Oh my God, you have a right to be upset? You can be upset about anything. But the point of it is that, look, you know, and it's such a reactionary, bipolar audience in so many ways. Like, and I spend my fair time in the deepest depths of it, whether it's Reddit, whether it's Team Liquid, whether it's my forums, whether it's on Twitter. I mean, you know, it's like I guess I enjoy it. I don't know. But at the end of the day, I'd rather have a few big personalities standing out in front of them saying, look, I don't care. This is what I'm doing. In your mind, that either represents something you like or you don't. A lot of people love the Yankees. A lot of people hate them. It's pretty much either or. There's no real middle ground. Same with the Boston Red Sox. Same with the Lakers. Same with the Celtics. Are you noticing a pattern? Right? If you don't, who cares about the Kansas City Royals? People from Kansas City. Right? So the idea is that you got to polarize. You got to put some direction and some energy into this stuff. So, you know, I think you can see who's investing. You know, there's the EG layer, you know, that they've just built out. It's pretty impressive. You know, the fact that they're doubling down and investing this money and having their team be in a position where this is a gaming house.
No, and I say this again. Anybody who is spending money on players, and this is something EG has done well throughout its history, you spend money on the players. I tell players all the time, if you want to have your travel paid for, then you better be at the level of what Evil Geniuses will recruit or an organization at that caliber. You know, when Sir Scoots was on the show, he said, you know, VV Gaming is the bottom up. Yes, we are the bottom up. We develop players. Our niche in esports has never been to be an EG. And, you know, we share a same sponsor. Our niche is to develop players, to generate esports fans. We have a broader reach. I almost equate it to the League of Legends thing we talked about earlier. You know, maybe we don't have Idris. Maybe we don't have that level of player, but we're not built like Dota, right? We're not built that way. That's not our model. Our model is to be like League of Legends, to even, and it pains me to say this, to be the World of Warcraft, right? We look at being able to access a broad audience, and, you know, to those who know to those who know our community, I mean, and you and I, Sundance, have talked about this. Our application process is 2 to 3 months. I mean, just think about that, right? Who would wait 2 to 3 months to join a competitive gaming organization? Well, that works here. But what is important is that this competitive landscape needs Evil Geniuses, needs VV Gaming, needs organizations that are trying. And there are others out there. I mean, you know, I was picking on BeyondGaming.net earlier, and Aaron Hassel called me out on it. And I just want to give a shout out to Aaron Hassel, who has been in this space for a long time. And, you know, they're adopting their model. They're looking at other ways in which they can try to make it work from where they started. There are some who I don't think get it, and I think there are some that are going to come in and who are really going to try. I don't think we need to be in competition. And I'm going to say this again. We need to support Major League Gaming. And I'm not saying that because Sundance is on the show, because Sundance, I think you and I started this dialogue because I have thrown some pretty heavy boulders at you when I'm not happy.
Mean, Jerry.
Yeah.
You didn't know me and you were shitting on me, but that's okay. I forgave you for it. It worked.
No, but I mean, but to your point, right? I wasn't on your forums crying.
No, you did it in your own. You did it in your own universe, and that's why I reached out and said I think we should talk. You know, but it was fine. Look, at the end of the day, it worked, right, for both of us. I saw an opportunity to turn some public perception to what my view of reality was, or at least to present my case and let them decide. Not to try and turn. I shouldn't say that. It sounds too.
No, but you were confident in what you were doing, and you knew that if you said this is what I'm doing, you were going to be heard. And you know, here we are a couple shows later, knowing that we're going to have this kind of conversation, and you know, I think tonight, in a lot of ways, Gears of War fans, a lot of people are going to be happy. There are a lot of people out there who are those influencers who are going to be really happy to hear this. I want to address a couple more questions that are coming from the community that I haven't hit, so forgive me. But a lot of people are talking about events next year, and you and I have talked about this before, but I want to throw it out there. 4 events means, to us as gamers, I think 4 lucky cities. I'm guessing Anaheim Blizzard. I don't know. Doesn't have enough hotels to me. Orlando the Gaylord I'm not buying. You tweeted about Chicago, but you know, I'm way too close to that to touch it. What goes into you making a decision about whether or not a city gets a Major League Gaming event?
Well, it's changed a little bit. We have cities like, oh God, I don't know which one I can name without getting in trouble. There's a city in Tennessee, for example, which has reached out and rolled out an offer for us. We're almost like the Olympics now for, nerd ballers, where we draw enough people and the local economy is impacted in such a positive way that people are now bidding to get our business for next year, which was always part of the plan, and it's finally come to play. So we have options that we didn't have in the past, where we can maybe get a venue for free, maybe get more of a steep discount in the hotel rooms for the 500 people who work for us over the course of the event weekend. You can get things that, get marketing dollars to help promote the event within, 5 hours drive, get localized sponsorship help, get media, newspapers, magazines, TV, radio, all that jazz. So in the past, it was, do they have enough space? Are they available? Is it, can we load in? Does the electricity support what we need to do? And is the internet good enough? Don't mention Dallas, but and so it's shifted a lot, and that's because of the work that Adam's done, and Clap has been fantastic. It's the work that we've done in trying to reach out to the CVBs and talk to them, and the visitor bureaus, and so for next year you're going to see some cities we've been to, but oh God, I wish I could say it. Well, it's gonna be different. It's all I can
Okay,
say.
so here's what I got. Right, I got Anaheim. You're not going to deny that, are you? Blizzard's backyard. I'm going to bet on Anaheim. We did this last year. I'm going to do it again. Chicago. I know that Mayor Rahm Emanuel, who's the new mayor, for those who don't know, of the city of Chicago, is going to make.
He's also a serious dude.
Dude, he's fucking like my blood. He's like, this is Chicago, baby.
He's a serious dude. You don't mess with him.
Thank you. That's how we roll here. That's what I like. You guys are tough on the outside in New York. You're not the same on the inside. Chicago is all, I think, a different space. There's a lot of we don't fuck around kind of things, but very serious about making it more friendly to conventions and events. And I would advise you to the Adlai Stevenson Convention Center where the Comic-Con is. It's in Rosemont. It's right outside the city. It's way better than St. Charles. And I think it would be a really good space for you guys, because the Comic-Con Wizards has a good relationship with them, and they definitely handle.
We know the Comic-Con guys very well.
I know you do. I just mentioned it as that's a space to look at.
Yeah.
the next thing that sort of hits me is, you've talked about this before about cities approaching you. And part of me says, okay, so what's it like when a city approaches Major League Gaming? What does that city do? What do they do to get a Major League Gaming event? What do you look for? Tax breaks, labor costs? What are the things that come into so somewhere out there, there's someone listening and saying, I want a Major League Gaming event here in New Orleans, which could be a city you could consider. What would New Orleans have to do that?
Well, I mean, number one, show local business support. It's helpful if businesses say, hey, we want to put posters up. We want to be able to, with the purchase of a large pie, give away a discounted spectator pass. We want to support your partners. There's a lot of things. It's literally the similar. It's similar to what you see about with the IOC doing the selection for the cities that are bidding on the Olympics at this point, where we put together a package, we send it out, and the cities come back and say, here's what we can offer you. We have some people, given the key to the city in one place that pitched us for next year and taken out and given, wined and dined and treated real nice. It's just, but the question is, again, what we need to determine is whether or not we think we can draw an audience there. The infrastructure's in place. The hotels are nice enough, affordable enough. We've proven we can draw anywhere now. Remember, Anaheim, West Coast was weak for us, but we just had a crazy event there. And again, and more importantly, no matter where we are, we can draw an online audience, which is also really important. So let's say the physical audience suffers because maybe people are back in school, or maybe our scheduling isn't as great as it needs to be and events are bunched up. We can draw 1 million people over the course of the weekend watching. That's impressive too, because they're hearing live from Columbus, Ohio, live from it's the classic thing. So for a city, for somebody who works at the CVB, if they're interested in working with Major League Gaming, basically they just need to send an inbound email and say, I think our city would be great because we have 4 college campuses with 80,000 students during semester and local.
Hold on, wait. Why aren't you in Chicago again? I mean, we're comparing
Unions are tough too, Jerry.
All right. Somebody asked a question that I have to address. League of Legends and Rally, invite only, and how are you going to determine who gets to go to Rally? Is that something that Riot gets to determine? What's going to happen?
I think that you'll have your answer tomorrow. How about that? I think tomorrow or Friday at the latest. It's been determined. It's a collaborative effort with Riot. We're doing a similar thing to what we did with StarCraft 2 when we rolled it out with a very controlled and measured approach. The experience in Raleigh is not going to be the experience that you're going to see the next time the game comes out or next season, but it's going to be to run the game, to make sure we can, to make sure the audience responds to it, and to see what we can learn from.
So only 4 teams, is that right?
I can't comment yet. The official announcement's not.
Oh, my God. You always do that, and then I know it's yes.
I didn't say yes.
So it's 8 teams?
Could be 5.
So what if I ask this question? In 2012, will the format change from what we see in Rally for League of Legends?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, moving along. I've got a lot of Canadians fans who loved when MLG was in Canada, and I think you had backing from a certain Canadian investor, and I want you to talk about what changed.
They could not build out a local audience of scale. So that was a licensing deal where we worked with Insight Sports, which was basically a very powerful sports entity up in Canada, affiliated with the great one, Wayne Gretzky, and several others. And we did a big push, and it was really exciting. We had a lot of fun. Did a couple of events. It got complicated. I think in order for it to work, I know Canadians want their own event. And I'm not saying no, but I'm not saying yes to next year. I think in order for that to happen, we would have to choose a city, a single city, and a facility, and that would, if we were to do it, it would be there, and everything would stay there. Meaning it would probably be a scaled-down event, but I'm not shipping my gear across the border. It's a pain in the ass. We learned that the hard way. It really is, and it's incredibly costly, and it's incredibly difficult, and it's all kinds of legal loopholes that you're going to deal with. So I'm not saying never, but not this year, obviously, because this year is pretty much baked, and next year, unless one of the things we're talking about comes through suddenly, I think it'll be difficult. What we need is we need somebody like Rogers to get behind it. Honestly, we need like a major player in the media space to say we want it here, and we're going to supplement the cost. So here's what all the Canadian fans can do. They can basically go to Rogers and they can say, hey, you know what you guys need to do? I need content around this on my TV, on my internet, and bring it to the Rogers Center.
I want to throw 3 questions out there that come straight from the audience that are not added by me. The first one is, any comment on the new partners for 2012 or any new partners coming on for the rest of the season?
Those announcements will be made when they're supposed to be made. But
Spoken like a true CEO.
Yeah,
this is a personal one. Do you feel Killer KC is to blame for Reach's decline in MLG?
The Killer KC hate has got to stop. All it shows is ignorance. I mean, this guy busts his ass. And no, it's not, because guess what? Nobody's playing the game online either. We've been forced to do is and the pros can bitch about it, and then they still don't show up to test, and the community testing is super engaged and then falls off, except for a few folks. Like, we've tried everything, and we've had these complaints going back to Halo 2. Okay, the problem is that, and it was the end of Halo 2 strong for us? Did we have a good transition to Halo 3? Was Halo 3 successful with the settings that Casey made, with the methodology that the league has used since, 4 or 5 years ago in terms of how this stuff is done? It's not Casey's fault. It's the game, folks. Like, it's limiting. And even the Call of Duty world, some of the stuff that we're asked to do, forced to do, like, we're going to revisit it. But the fact of it is that Casey gets hate, and it drives me nuts. There isn't a harder working, nicer guy out there, and quite frankly, he needs a raise. He doesn't even make that much money to be abused. At least, I started the company. I expect the abuse. He doesn't deserve it.
No. I think, I remember way back in 2007 when we were doing gear settings, him and XC being a part of that. And, I'll be honest, Killer KC reminds me in certain respects, much like Adam Clapp. He's short and to the point. You don't get a lot of hugs and kisses from those kind of people, but they're passionate about what they do. They're not about anything else. They're not there for the ego. They're there for their job in a very focused way. So, I mean, maybe you see something different. Other titles, I guess there's one title I haven't talked about tonight, and I'm going to be you're going to probably shut me down here, but Battlefield.
Can't comment.
Can't comment because it's going to happen? No, I mean, come on. Give me something.
Battlefield, okay, so I'll give you this. Since GDC, they've been incredibly interested in making the game work as a high competitive level as possible.
8v8, 4v4, what's your guess?
God, you know how hard it is just to get 4 people to show up against 4 people. 8v8's scary, but the game's made to be played in a certain way, so we'll see.
So PC, what do you think?
Again,
if you were to give it PC, you think maybe?
I don't. I don't even have the game to play on. Multiple.
Mark Faraz from Quantic Gaming has been dying to get a hold of you. Have you ever talked to him?
I believe we spoke a while ago, maybe even around Dallas. He's excited for it. I know.
He is like the biggest Battlefield fan, and he hates me. He often Can you talk to him? Mark Faraz, if you're paying attention, I want Sundance to talk to you, because he always accuses me of having a red phone to you. He's like the North American fame guy. And to be fair, he spends a lot of money on sponsoring his teams. All you out there, Quantic Gaming, Mark will pay for your everything. And he's very upset, Mr. Sundance, you don't talk to him. Can you give him a hug or a shout out, because he's a Battlefield guy?
I will. I'll reach out. I'll find the last note I got from him, and if I don't, I'll have somebody else. I want folks to know that my inbox today went from, when I started my day, 275 emails unread to 684. And that's my fault. It's because my email address is public, and I'm very close to email bankruptcy, but it's also because I don't have an assistant that can just go through it. So I'm doing this thing, and my push is just like, if you're really at the events and you're there, just grab me.
Yeah.
Or
So
grab
Mark,
somebody within my organization, or impress someone within my organization with your persistence, because I do get to all the emails eventually, but I'm backlogged months. So to Quantic, I apologize. I know I've seen the good things you're doing. You've made an impression. I suck. It's my fault. I'm sorry. I will reach out. I will find the last email. I will reply. And I will have to have.
And can you confirm for Mark that there's no red phone that I have to you, that we just talk because maybe we like each other? We just talk and you?
No, it's only because you gave me so much shit for so long.
See, Mark, listen, Mark, if you're listening, write an open letter, complain of what they do wrong, be sincere in their business, tell them what they're doing wrong. Sundance will listen. It's not that I have a special red bat phone. So, okay, so. Something other organizations are breaking in to ask me all the time. You have done NOS Energy. You have allowed those who have energy drink sponsors to come in quietly as long as they don't interfere with what NOS's space is and what they do. Previously, that was not the case. You are not in the business anymore, or do you plan to be in the business? As a EG, as a Complexity, as a SK Gaming, as any of the Korean houses from Slayer to any of the others, can we work with you freely? And how do we deal with the conflicts? Like, how do we deal with the issue that, obviously you can't let someone put a amped energy drink logo everywhere I go and spend a lot less money than they would for NOS, who has to support you. And I think anybody in the business understands that, or they should understand that. I can't have SteelSeries stuff everywhere when Astro's giving this contribution unless SteelSeries does something else. To those people who think that you want to own it all and who haven't had that chance, give them the conversation about your situation, why you really want us to be here and you really support us, and make them understand clearly where you're at.
I don't know if I can make them understand. I'll try.
Oh, trust me, I did. This is honest truth. There was this little conglomerate of organizations coming together, and I said, look, Sundance does not want to be in the player management business, and he really wants to have great sponsors and not interfere with us, but there are borders. And I got shut out. I was a bit of a radical. They made fun of me. They said I had a different model. So why don't you tell them?
Look, if you've got the stomach for it, go with it. We've tried. We've pulled away from it recently. It's a war of attrition for us because we can't keep everybody happy, and we're only thinking about ourselves. And no matter how much we do, we're not doing enough. It's difficult. It's a difficult business. So for me to have, and I believe that these folks have actually even been speaking to John Lane inside my group, the guy who runs sales for us, about their thoughts. It's a tough business, man. It's hard to be out there hustling SteelSeries and hustling Monster and hustling, the many brands that we've seen Razer come in, kind of on the fringe. And I'm not talking about Red Bull and what they do and my frustration with them. I'm talking about, organizations that are out with a plan, with exposure that they can provide to a product or service, just trying to support themselves. So as long as we can come to a happy medium, I have no problem with it. You just can't walk in with a Monster can and lay it down on the main stage and think I'm going to be okay with it. You can have it on the jersey, but it can't be a huge Monster logo. It's going to have to be limited. And I can't have you call yourself the Monster Energy Drink Team. I just can't, because it devalues the root of what I'm building. I mean, if I let you do that, guess what? Prize money goes away, because I can't charge as much money as I currently do for sponsorships because no one will pay it. because your guerrilla marketing has made my marketing vehicle useless. So, sorry, it's a business. In the NFL, what brand of cleat do they wear? Right? The league chooses.
No, I agree. Yeah.
It's not like baseball where you get to wear whoever assigns you. There's uniform guidelines. Right? In the NFL, they're pretty broad. And I believe the cleat one may have been let up recently, but it was Reebok for a long time. You couldn't wear anything else, and if you did, you got in trouble. Even if they wore the wrong color cleat. Ask Chad Ochocinco and Peyton Manning about that. They both got fined for that one. I'm not doing that. I'm just trying to protect the core. You can walk around the floor wearing, drinking, taking pictures, doing whatever you want. But when you're on my feature stations or my main stage, I may ask you to do certain things. And you'll say, well, that kills all my exposure. Really? Doesn't your team winning, standing up, getting the picture of the check, and then, after I'm done with my broadcast, you stand there with your trophy that I got made for you and your big check, and you take your pictures and you do the autographs. I think, that's better than nothing. And a few years ago, I couldn't let you do that. So we're making progress. But, I don't know. Some people are going to think that it's just, we don't want to play in that space. But that's Scoots. I mean, my God. You see the Monster logo on his jersey? Guess what Scoots did? He sent me that jersey before they made it so I could look at it and tell him what I thought.
Oh, wait a minute. You're ruining Sir Scoots' reputation right now.
Oh, shit. Sorry, Scoots. You're actually a smart business person who understands that there's a right way to do certain things. Okay.
Shh, don't tell him that because, though people will be like, yeah. No, I mean, obviously.
And he didn't need to. He didn't need to.
No. I mean,
but he knew what would happen. If he didn't, he knew there was a chance that they would show up and we'd say, you guys can't do that, and then they'd never come back.
Right.
Right? And
you would say no, they would not bring their talent, everybody loses. Absolutely.
How good is that for them? How good is that for the God? If we didn't have Greg coming to play, we wouldn't have had half the great moments we've had this year.
No, everybody agrees. I mean, nobody's gonna deny that. I think this is what everybody who wants to play in this space needs to understand. I mean,
look, here's the deal. I've been investing in it for 8 years. Who can walk in and think that they're immediately entitled to anything when I've been investing heavily for 8 years? It takes a little while. Sorry, I know, you may feel like it should come immediately. It's not how it works. Ask anybody. Not even just me. Ask the complexity guys. Ask Scoots.
I'm not going to ask the complexity guys, but I will ask EG. Complexity tries to steal one of my players, so I'm still trying to get over that.
You guys be good to each other.
We do have to be good to each other. I mean, come on. I've plugged EG tonight. I've given Quanic their space. I'll give a shout out to Kurt Key Hunt at Check 6 Gaming. There's some great people out there. A lot of people come into this and they think that, there's this rivalry. But I mean, at the end of the day, this rivalry is important to what makes competitive gaming. So, I think it's always good. And I want all of them, from Check 6 Gaming, Kurt and all of them and what they do, to Mark at Quantic Gaming, to Alex Garfield and Sir Scoots at EG, to Jason Lake and everyone at Complexity. Anybody who consistently is helping players come to events is doing something, I think, really positive for esports. And maybe that's something that they all may need to hear from you. I mean, all of us are spending our sponsors' money, our resources to getting those players there. And obviously that has value to you, right? So the next time a player accuses you of being only about the money, which, my God, would you do this if you were only about the money? I mean, I think it's a very naive perspective. Address that critique if you don't mind. Did we lose Sundance? I think we might have lost Sundance, gentlemen.
I'm here. Did I cut out there?
Did you hear my question about?
I heard the question. I had a great answer. I thought you heard me. Okay, so my answer about just in it for the money is, well, I'm still here and I'm still investing in it. And in the beginning, Mike and I, it was our own money. There was no partner money. There was no sponsorship money. There was just this ridiculous idea that we could go get it, but we had to build something first to point to, and we made a lot of mistakes. But I get asked this a lot. I get asked, how big's your house? How much money do you make? Where do you live? Am I 12. I'm pushing 40 years old. My birthday is this Friday, and it will be the 10th birthday that I've been in the middle of this shit, and I love it. So, yeah, I'm an adult who has a family, who has kids, and who has a business to run. But I'm not in esports for the money. I'm not in competitive gaming for the money. I'm in it because I saw an opportunity to build something that no one else was going to build the way I wanted to build it. And that excited me, was the opportunity to be a part of building a community and a business and putting something out there that was going to live on long after I was gone. So if it was just about the money, I hate to say it, but shit, I'd be gone already.
Here's a critique. Sundance, you're making money you are getting a paycheck as a CEO of Major League Gaming, and your family is getting a living. Here's a critique I hear that's painful for me to repeat, but I want you to address it for them. So when I go to sponsor them, they don't ask me this question. What about us Halo players? What are you doing for us? We've been there the whole time, Sundance. What about us? We don't have your paycheck. What about us?
Right. It's my responsibility to put the paycheck in your pocket. I'm indebted to you, the player, the guy who, let's put it this way, have you seen the crowds that show up? Have you seen the opportunity that some of the players have to make revenue doing, if I see another player ask for a Xbox Live Pass on Twitter, I'm going to lose my shit, right? But all that stuff exists. That the fame, the limited or extended fortune that some of these guys have exists because they do something at a very high level and there's a stage for them to do it on. I want them to be as successful as they want to be. I really do. But a sense of entitlement, I'm not standing here with my hand out saying I need this for me in order for me to succeed. Guess what? I can make money doing other things, but I do this because I love it, just like they play it because they love it. The problem is that, and this is the really disappointing part in terms of the sense of entitlement, it's like, when I have somebody look me in the face and say, it's your job is to make me make money. And I always look at them and I'm like, really? How is that my job? How is that my responsibility? Guess what? There's some guys out there in our league who are big names on whatever game you want to talk about would never in their wildest fucking dreams say that to me, and they're successful. And they would be successful if they were doing something else because their approach is that they take ownership of it. My job is not to get Halo players six-figure salaries. My job is to create a platform upon which they can have the level of success that the game and the community is going to take them to. Guess what? If Derek Jeter's jersey is the most popular selling jersey for a reason, you can say he's washed up and he doesn't deserve a $20 million contract or these other things. The guy is an icon, okay? And that's
Wait, who did you say again?
Derek Jeter. It's not the Yankees saying he's an icon. It's the fact that he is a star and people buy his jerseys and people will pay to see him play, right? No matter what you may think of him as if you're a baseball fan, he can help fill a stadium. So he has earned all of the spoils, right? The baseball is filled with players that you can't even name. He's an example of somebody who can. Does a guy who plays for 3 weeks at the end of the season because he gets called up, does he deserve Derek Jeter's salary? Is it Major League Baseball's responsibility to guarantee him a big house and a cushy job? No. It's their job to provide the biggest stage possible. That's what we're trying to do. And the problem is our stage is still small, even though our events have been record-setting recently. It's still not big enough for what everybody expects to have happen yet. I think it'll get there, but you know what? We're still building. So I don't, when people say, well, you make money, why don't I? Number one, you're assuming that I don't put every penny back into the business, that I don't need to survive. And number two, what about all the money I invested when there was no money?
Sundance, I want to throw something in there because I think a lot of players don't understand the process being a startup into being eligible for venture capital. You and Mike Supso making a decision to take institutional money. The changes that came in, that you may disagree with me when I say this, but most entrepreneurs I know, they're not ready for what happens when you take institutional money, and you can disagree with me. And then where you are today. And I don't know if you feel comfortable talking about it, but I think your journey is very typical of a typical entrepreneur. You lose control, regain control, because once you take that institutional money, and for those of you that are listening that don't know what this means, I want to make it really clear to you. I get people that ask me all the time, Jerry, why don't you do this? Why don't you go out and get investors? Well, getting investors is either asking somebody I know who has money to give me money, or it involves me to go out into the space and take money from people who are venture capitalists or they're angel investors. They have these titles. They're people who donate to your business idea. When you do that, things change. They change in a lot of ways. And although I want to do all the things that a business does, the pressure that I have to be for demonstrating certain things that one has to do once they take institutional money, I could be the best guy to run my business, but I may not have the context to run my business. I'm the best guy to run my business, but I may not have the easiest out to sell my business. There are things that institutions require that are different. As quick as you can, Sundance, talk a little bit about that journey.
Well, I mean, it's complicated. It's not. You have to understand first what we're talking about. We took money from groups that manage hundreds of millions of dollars. One group manages $1 billion.
You're talking about Oak, right?
Yeah.
And they have the Huffington Post. They're not small players in the field.
No. So in order for this to be a success, this business needs to do $100 million in revenue and have a big multiple and all kinds of things that we don't need to get into. But more importantly, what it means is that your destiny is, things shift. It's not just you. You have a passenger who is going to be involved in your decision-making process, and you're going to have to convince that you're doing the right thing. And, for a lot of people, especially the type of person who's an entrepreneur, that's a difficult thing to make fit with your personality type, right? So all I can say is again, it's not what you see. It's all the stuff that you don't see that makes it complicated. Like Dallas being, the beginning of this year, Dallas being a catastrophe, you see that, you understand it because you've seen our events, you've seen us, you've seen me, you've heard me talk about it. You can imagine how disappointed I am, and you can get really mad and call me all sorts of names. What you can't see is the pressure behind the scenes of people who've put millions and millions of dollars into a vision that started in back of a cocktail napkin with two friends talking about video games and having the belief that they could make a business work. You don't see the pressure of that shifting to, well, now you've suddenly essentially handed off a big chunk of the company in exchange for this capital to make it work. You don't see the little, the stresses or fractures that come out of choosing bad management and having to deal with that and excise those demons. What you see is whoever's left standing there. And so, again, it's not, I'm not complaining, but it's not as cut and dry as people think. And the reality of it is it's politics. There's a lot of politics involved, and there's a lot. And you know what? The other thing about it is, I play coy a lot, but you're playing chess. You've got to be thinking 2-3 moves.
I was going to say, we're talking long term, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you say this a lot on the show, and I sometimes wonder if our audience understands this, but you talk about bringing something to scale, which in the business world is a very common term about what happens when you reach a certain level in your growth. Do you want to define that about what is important about bringing Major League Gaming, quote unquote, to scale and what that would look like?
Well, it means that, scale is, again, in my opinion, it's engagement, audience numbers, direct-to-consumer revenue, because any sports business, any sports media business, any affinity brand business has a direct-to-consumer line, which is healthy. I can't tell you. I can tell you what what projections look like, but at the end of the day, it's what it's about. It's a business that is self-sustaining and is in charge of its own destiny because it's about execution. All the NFL needs to do to be successful is execute. We just saw what happens when they're unable to execute because everything turns into a shit show and there's a lockout, right? The reason that execution block happened is because there's two distinct parties who have different wants and needs, and they need to work together. And the guys with all the money, the owners, because as rich as a great line, great line I heard a couple of years ago, Game 7 of the NBA Finals, the Lakers after E3. I was there, and one of the executives from the team, we were talking about Shaquille O'Neal and how, he had this great history there, and he wasn't there anymore. It was a bummer, but how much money he'd made and how successful his career was. And the executive from the team looked over and said, the team, all the big names of the players, and you may even know what their contracts are. They don't make the money. Not even close. The owners make the money. And that's exactly the way they want it. Owners want you to look at the big chains, the flashy cars, and the suits and clothes, because if and when they need to, they can villainize the players. And then this lockout happened, and I thought the Players Association did a great job of not allowing that to happen. But the point of it is that it's far more complicated than you can imagine to balance those sides out. So when you've got investors and you've got community that expects certain things, you've got players that expect certain things, keeping all those distinct groups satisfied, not even happy, but just satisfied, is a juggling act. And doing it while building a business which has never been profitable for a complete calendar year, that's challenging. And that's where we're at.
I think I can iterate that. I mean, in Chicago, having been lucky enough to meet Jerry Reinsdorf, who was the owner of Chicago Bulls, and Jerry Krause, and myself being a Jerry, the three Jerrys, the owners of these franchise teams are making a lot of money, and they're not taking these teams on because they're going to take a significant loss for any substantial amount of time. That sounds fair, right, Sundance?
Yeah, absolutely. And think about this, though, right? From a structural and organizational standpoint, 5 teams in the NBA make money. So
say that again, because you know what? Actually, this comes back to my New York Yankees example. For those of you who are not an EG that are listening, say that again, because
in the NBA, there are 5 teams that turn a profit. Now, I want to wait a second and let that sink in and say, how's that possible? But that's the universe that we live in. Now, every single team owner who owns the team has other avenues for revenue generation around those teams. That's not just distinctly tied to arena fees and broadcast fees and whatnot. But the teams themselves, as businesses run with a profit and loss, 5. That's atrocious. It's not easy, but that's the reality is like, some of that's by design. Just like in baseball, some of that's by design, because there can only be, one New York Yankee team, one Boston Red Sox team, one Philadelphia Philly team, one St. Louis. I mean, in 2 short years, a family out of Boston, and in the last 2 years, came in and bought the Dodgers, turned them in from one of the most valuable franchises in the sports world to a laughing stock. 13,000 people showing up, bankruptcy. This shit's complicated, So again, for us, working in a non-traditional media world, we've got to be very aware of the desires of our current investors and any potential future investors and the community and the players and everybody else.
Let me throw one thing in there. You're talking about non-traditional media. Sometimes people ask about stream numbers in relation to mainstream television, and do you ever want to go mainstream TV? And there are those who experience what happened at CGS who cringe at what mainstream television or cable television may have meant. I'll preface it by saying, and I really do want you to challenge me on this, I don't see cable or mainstream TV being the space. I think that the niche of online streaming, I almost feel like it's your advantage. Like I can't imagine why anyone in this space would go to television or cable TV, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there is a G4, maybe there is something. What do you think?
You do it for the same reason that UFC, well, no, actually UFC's walking away from a lot of the stuff they were going to do with TV, but let's say the NFL or NASCAR, you do it for the same reason they do. There's a big check. Somebody sees the opportunity and says, we want to take part of it, refine it down into something that we can put into this broadcast slot, and here's a few $1 million. So, yeah, I mean, otherwise, what's the point? There is no point. I mean, because you.
As a savvy businessman, you're saying there are some IPs, some things, NFL, other things, that on television still draw it, but I mean, long term, will gaming really be there?
Well, look, honestly, the NFL, here's the problem the NFL has. The at-home experience is better than the live experience for most people. Like, it really is. You know, you look at how those games are covered, it's fantastic.
I live in Chicago, and to watch the Bears in the winter is not something I'm going to go to the stadium for, so I hear you.
I'll be honest with you, I don't think, team-based shooters on TV is not mass. It's not. They were nowhere near getting there. We did it with USA. We did it on G4, and it was hurting cats. Other types of games, fighting games, RTS. There's a potential there, but I'm not making the investment. If someone wants to come along and fund an experiment, I'm happy to look into it.
Well, let me ask this question: if you were again in that position where you had to, maybe I'll ask it a different way, more so to address your critics. I know you're not doing this for the money. I know you can't do this for the money. Tell them why you do it. I mean, why do this thing? What is it about competitive gaming? What is it about this space? I mean, I might say, look, you started here, young men, the demographic, this, but why gaming? Why for you?
I enjoy it. I see potential here. I've grown up playing games, and I've really valued the community and valued the people that I've met through it throughout my life. And I don't see why not. Like why not enjoy what I do? Why not do something that people think is crazy, a little crazy? It's fun. I think. Look, the thing I tell people is, and may or may not make sense, that when I grew up, I wanted to be a filmmaker. I went to film school. I wanted to tell stories. I still do. I'm here to tell the story. I'm not, coding the sites. I'm not, plugging everything in and,
You're like the director, aren't you?
I'm just here doing my thing. I'm trying to tell the story that I think is a great story, and I'm trying to get other people to tell it. So it's, like I said, it beats getting a real job.
So, Sundance, before we let you go, I want to make sure I give you an opportunity to give out any shout-outs, anything you'd like to say, anything you'd like to touch upon. First, I want to thank you for all the time you give us, for answering all our questions. And the floor, the proverbial conch shell, is yours. Tell us what you want us to know.
Well, it's been a while since I've been on, so I wanted to, try and give you as much time as possible. Had no idea that it was almost 1 o'clock here, but I do this because I'm enjoying myself. The minute I don't enjoy myself, somebody else will probably have to do it. But I don't see that happening anytime soon. We're not where we want to be, and anybody who takes a look at the recent success we've had and says, we've really arrived and it's finally as big as it can be or as it needs to be. We're not quite there. We're doing well, but we got to continue. We got to continue on the path. So, thanks to everybody out there. Thanks to the members of VVV. Thanks to the Quantics of the world, the EG. Thanks to the community, because again, I'm here because you guys care enough for it to matter enough for me to be here. And as always, I just ask that everybody keep in mind that we are collectively, as a group, as a community, we are in this together. We need to be pulling together. We need to be working together. So keep that in mind the next time you get all pissed off at a game that you don't play getting the spotlight, or a player that you don't respect, having a fan base. Embrace it. I mean, that's, the history of modern sport and competition is about rivalry. It's about triumph, failure. It's about the journey. So enjoy it. And do what you can to try and bring more people into the fold. That's all I ask.
And I don't think that requires anybody else to say anything. Sundance, again, to our audience, Sundance DiGiovanni, the CEO of Major League Gaming. I want to personally thank you again for coming on the show, shedding awesome light on what 2012 and the future competitive gaming brings. And again, sir, it is our honor and pleasure to have you on our show.
Thank you so much, and I'll talk to you soon. And I will see you. Hopefully, anybody who makes it out to Raleigh, grab me. Don't tackle me, but just grab me. Say hey, and I'll speak to y'all soon. Have a good night, and I'll talk to you later.
After nearly about 2 hours worth of trying to figure out how to work my mic, I have to give a shout out to DJ Wheaton, Sir Scoots, and all of them for doing this weekly, because I now see the troubles that they go through. So thanks to everyone for putting up with our growing pains, and of course a big shout out to Sundance DiGiovanni for coming on to our show, sharing the last 2 hours of our time. It's been an honor. It really has. Sundance, thank you again so much. And to everyone that did check us out on the live stream, once again, thank you guys for tuning in, sharing your questions as well. As always, the way we like to end the show, I want to give a big thank you to VV Gaming sponsors, SteelSeries, Gamer Grub, Control Freak, MusicSkins.com, and Custom Ink. Big shout out to the entire competitive gaming community. Your feedback and support is what keeps this show going. We will be continuing to do this live. Things will work themselves out. It'll be a little bit smoother in the coming weeks. So please do come back, check us out. Additionally, you can find all of our old episodes from previous weeks on our forum and also on the VV Gaming Podbean. It's vvgaming.podbean.com. You can also subscribe to us on iTunes. If you want, you can just search for us. Check for VV Gaming. We'll pop right up. That way you can get all of our podcasts as they come out. You can also follow us over on Twitter, and there we are simply known as Losers Bracket. Once again, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. And Jerry, thank you for helping run that interview.
No, you guys let me do this. But for those of you that are sticking around, they're still on the stream. John, you, sir, you've been around a long time. What do you think?
A lot of good information. It's good to hear finally a lot of answers from him, and I know a lot of people have been waiting, especially the people in the Gears of War community and in the MOBA community, to see how, League of Legends and Heroes of New Earth will do, and of course the future of Halo and Call of Duty and fighters, and just so much information to take in. Like Jason said, it's been 2 hours, and Sundance gave us a ton of good info, and I just don't even know where to start. I'm really looking forward to the 2012 season, really looking forward to Raleigh to see the MOBAs kind of in person at MLG for the first time, and so it's hard to even find a place to begin with all the good info he gave us.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with that there. I partially because of the microphone problems where I had to sit back and listen in very closely to everything. But at the same time, I really enjoyed sitting back, taking all that in. There's a lot of things that are coming up in the next year that are going to be really good for MLG and for the entire competitive gaming community. I, for one, am stoked to see these changes. Seeing League of Legends, seeing the fighting games coming onto the circuit. I think we pretty much got a confirmation that we're going to see Mortal Kombat in some shape or fashion in the future. I'm looking forward to seeing that in Raleigh as well. But overall, I got to say, stoked for the future, and can't say enough good things about Sundance coming on the show and sharing all that with us.
Yeah, I mean, I think for the Gears of War community, this is a clean slate. This is the Gears of War community's opportunity to do it right. And I think the Gears of War community is young, and normally that may, at least on the surface, appear to be a disadvantage, but where I think it's an advantage is that they now walk into a Major League Gaming event, into this space, seeing StarCraft. And, I talked about it a little bit earlier, but it's rare to find an organization, and I think about Slayers when I think about this, when they have someone who, Boxer is the leader of Slayers, and for those of you that don't follow StarCraft, it's kind of that story. It's the guy who was one of the best players in the world, started his own team, and when he came to Raleigh, when he came to Columbus, and he said, when people think of MLG, I want them to think of Slayers. That kind of endorsement comes from a transition from being a player to being what I do, or what Alex Garfield and Sir Scroots do, or what any of the team leaders do, your perspective changes. And it really reinforced to me that the Koreans are about the business. They get it. They get what I do. They get, because they're doing it. They get what is required of players to transition to be owners. So, I mean, it was nice to see a lot of that. I mean, I don't know if you guys felt that way, but I did.
Yeah, it's really good to see a player that gets it on, the business side of things and gets, it's hard to kind of explain this, but, a lot of players just play the game and then expect someone else to do a lot of the work. And with going out there and really pushing Slayers and really welcoming MLG into the competitive StarCraft universe and really working with them and, thanking them. That's something you don't ever see players do. It's something refreshing to see players like that, out there and really understand and really get everything about the esports universe. And so I think a lot of people can pull on what he did and, grow on that over the next couple of years.
I think at some level it's not about, and I think a lot of players, even that come to us for sponsorship, think, they say the same thing. It's like, if I could put quotes on anything, it's, I'm going to represent you well. And represent is such a broad term. To say you're going to represent VV Gaming or EG or anyone, actually that's what you're offering is the minimum. You're saying, I'm going to come to you and I'm going to breathe. And I'd be like, yeah, I hope you are going to breathe. I mean, that's the minimum. It's the same thing that, so let's say I'm trying to demonstrate value to Major League Gaming. I'm not going to do it by showing up at Major League Gaming events and just sponsoring players. Have a podcast show, write for a major newspaper, do something that didn't.
I think Jerry's mic just cut out. Oh, the technical issues, the joys of being live.
I know, right? Did I miss that?
You did.
What I was saying before my mic cut out was that I think a lot of people make the mistake of the way to sort of think about it is the idea that LordJerith, I'm going to represent VV Gaming. To those of you who believe that's what you're doing, you're coming to me and you're saying, I'm going to breathe. Of course you're going to represent VV Gaming. You're offering me breathing. I think it's the same thing for Major League Gaming when communities think about what they're going to do for MLG. Sundance didn't say tonight, I want you to like the title. As a matter of fact, Sundance said the exact opposite. He said, if you tell me you love the title, I don't have to worry about you because you're going to buy it anyway. It's almost the argument of be the discerning connoisseur, be the person who really demands quality. If you're a competitive gamer, you have to be a competitive gamer at the level that you are discerning. You're not going to take whatever crap a developer gives you. And if they give you crap, don't buy it. It's hard for a lot of gamers. I really do.
Yeah. Bottom line becomes you have to basically speak with your wallet.
John, you looked like you were going to say something. Go ahead.
I did. I was just going to agree with you. It seems like a lot of players, when you say the Walmart represents you and you're just going to breathe. Yeah. Putting on a t-shirt is something anybody can do. What really represents more than anything, regardless of, in my opinion at least, regardless of money, regardless of how much you have your, team name, organization, or sponsors plastered all over you, is how you handle yourself. And I think, how a player handles himself in the media is really how they can represent themselves the best. And you can see that with Boxer when he gets interviewed, when he says, when you think Slayers, you think MLG. And that's where you really show your sponsors. That's where you really show your organization. This is how I'm going to represent you. Not just, well, I can wear a t-shirt and people are going to see me on stage. Well, anybody can do that. It's all about, when you're on Twitter, when you're on Facebook, when you're doing video interviews, when you're doing text interviews, how you put your words together and how you actually represent yourself. That is something I think a lot of players need to learn. And that's something that, I think players like Boxer are helping teach people as well. And so the people that kind of do get it can work with other players to actually, teach. I think teaching is something, and educating is something that needs to be done with a lot of gamers and how they handle themselves, not just wearing a t-shirt, but actually promoting.
I do believe, John, that a lot of people don't get that putting on a shirt is what sponsors want. And how do you let a young gamer know that, you know what, putting on a shirt and playing is not at all what we want? You know, what do you think they need to know? What do you think we might be missing?
I think presentation, and when I say presentation, I don't just mean visual and I don't just mean vocal, but both. I think a lot of people, like, I think MLG actually had rules for a while on, you know, what you could wear on main stage. You had to wear, you know, shoes. You couldn't wear flip-flops. You had to wear, you know, a certain kind of pants like khaki shorts or blue jeans or something. You couldn't wear gym shorts. A lot of that tells a lot about your character and who you are. And so if you walk into a venue with flip-flops and gym shorts on and then a VVV shirt on top of it, then it's like, well, I just rolled out of bed, you know, stayed up till 5 o'clock in the morning, woke up at 6, and I'm coming in to play. That's one thing. And then if you can wear your VVV shirt and have a nice pair of pants on and nice shoes, and can walk into the venue and don't smell bad and can fully be like, look at me, I'm professional. That is one way that you can better represent someone. And that's a way that visually your personality can be improved. And then vocally, you know, I keep going back to Boxer and I keep beating a dead horse, I know, but you know, what he did and how he presents himself when he's interviewed, that speaks volumes compared to someone who comes on and is like, yeah, no, never, ever, ever answer yes or no to a question. Even though journalists are taught to never ask yes or no questions, if they do, never answer yes or no, or it shows that you have no knowledge on what they asked you about. And so you can be good at a game, but do you really know the game? Do you know the community? How can you actually show that you're an intelligent gamer and also a good gamer at the game?
Well, John, I mean, a lot of times when somebody approaches me for sponsorship and I mean, I get this all the time, they will be like, they're hedging their bets. They're like, you know, I'll represent you, but what they want is fame. And there'll be some teams like, you know, we pick up Believe the Hype, for example. Maniac, a top Halo pro. I'm not done with my even giving him all the details. He's changed his gamer tag already. That's a level of professionalism that comes in that you don't get in other places. Right? Those are the kind of people you can back. Rio, our Mortal Kombat 9 player, is not contracted. He is going to be contracted, and I'm not worried between now and the time that I get him the contract that he's going to run away. One of the big things that I think often gets missed in all of this space is that a lot of players, they want to be like, it's almost like an ego thing between other players. It's like, I'm going to brag to my peers how I'm using my sponsor because I'm better than them. And they don't see how transparent they are when they do that. Like, we know you're saying that. I mean, you're around people that we know. I mean, you say to a competitive team, and this is the part that always amuses me, until another competitive team, you're playing them, and all of a sudden they're like, oh, you're playing for VV Gaming, you're playing for EG. And you make the mistake of telling them, yeah, but, you know, they just pay our fucking bills. I don't care about them. That team then comes to me and says, dude, I know you're backing Get Bronco, but this is what Get Bronco said behind your back. I'm not saying Get Bronco did, but using them as an example of a team that we have. As soon as you tell one of your peers negative things about your sponsor, they're going to come to us telling us you said that so they can get the money you're going to get. And I think that's the naivety that a lot of young players have, is they're trying to play for the fame instead of play for the business. And I think that hurts a lot of people. Have you ever seen that?
Yeah, I agree with that, because it doesn't need to be a game of, well, I'm good at this game, who's going to give me the most? And it's not going to be, you know, all right, well, this person's going to give me this person's going to give me more, I can brag about them more, they have more prestige, so just by existing with that clan tag in front of me, I'm going to be better. You have to provide something in the relationship with the organization. You can't come to VVV and say, you know, all right, I want to go to DreamHack, will you pay my plane tickets? And I'll wear your, t-shirt and we'll be on the stage. It's like, okay, well, that's all fine and well, but what are you going to actually do for us? It has to, you talked about going and changing the gamer tag before everything's even finished. That's showing that they don't just want something from anybody. They want to be a part of your organization. And that if you're going to reach out to them, they're legitimately going to be a part of VVV Gaming or EG or Complexity, whoever it is. It's not playing for the money, and it's not playing for someone. It's playing, with that organization. And I think there's a fine line right there that people don't really get, and it's more of, what are you going to give me? Okay, well, this person's going to give me more. I don't really care who it is, as long as they give me more. Sometimes it's not worth it to take that, better offer if you're not going to be able to actually work for someone and actually provide something for that community.
That in a lot of ways is music to me, and I think you said it best. It's not working for your sponsor. It's not doing things for your sponsor. It's doing things with your sponsor. Do things with your sponsor. You have to believe that the things your sponsor wants are the things you want. That's the key, with them. And I'm glad you said that, John, because I think a lot of people miss that you're working with your sponsor, not for your sponsor. Jason, you've been silent tonight. I know it's partially because of technical reasons, but how's the show been for you?
Well, aside from a little bit unnerving in the fact that the technical difficulties have kind of gotten to me a little bit, but aside from that, I'm really glad we got to do this. I definitely think that, and this is going to be switching subjects just a little bit here, but I definitely think we need feedback more than ever on this episode. So to those that are still on the live stream, to those that are listening after the fact, once we put this up, please be outspoken. Let us know what we can do better. Tweet us your feedback. Send us emails. Hit me up on Twitter, Jerry Phoenix. All three of us, we really need to know what you guys want to hear in the future so that we can improve, because we do this for you guys. We really do. Just as Sundance said earlier, this is a game that we're all in. We are all in this together, and we want to see this grow as much as all of you do. So I want to thank you guys for sticking with us through all the technical difficulties tonight. And I know a lot of people are saying Sundance was low, and I was trying my best on the back end to make it as good for you guys as well. So thank you. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we really look to improve over the next couple weeks as well, and bring you an even better product.
Yeah, and I'm going to do a recap tonight, so everybody knows that tonight, if you are a competitive gaming fan, StarCraft 2 and League of Legends on the PC. On the Xbox, it clearly appears that Gears of War 3 is here. Halo and Call of Duty may have to fight for that second spot on the 360. And if Sundance has his way, he really wants Super Street Fighter 4 and then Mortal Kombat 9, and even hinted that he himself was a Tekken fan. So if you are a fan of any of those games, tonight Sundance told you what you needed to do. It's not about bitching to your developers. It's about being a part of this. There are organizations out there, Evil Geniuses, Complexity Gaming. There are sponsors out there like SteelSeries and Intel and MSI. These are the people who are making a difference, who are helping us do what we do. And it would be amiss of me not to mention even Major League Gaming sponsors, right? Hot Pockets and Stride and Dr. Pepper. You know them. You've seen them. You have to let the world know that the reason you do the things you do is because of what Major League Gaming, what Evil Geniuses, what VV Gaming, what the teams and the league that is sponsored by these companies, you have to let those companies know what is going on. At the end of the day, this is not going to be successful because of Sundance or because of me or because we have the right game or because of EG or because of Complexity. It's going to be successful because of you, the esports fan. We need you more so than you know. And even though right now it's good times, Sir Scoots, DJ Wheat, people who are older and wiser and more experienced than myself will tell you it can go away very quickly. Do not take it for granted. So on that note, I think it's a good time to say goodnight. I want to thank you all for being a part of this. I want to thank you all for being a part of our first live show. John, thank you so much. And John and Jason, I want to give you guys a chance to say goodbye and give your shout outs. John, start with you.
All right, thank you very much. It was fun listening to you and Sundance go on and on about all the stuff that we love so much. And just to reiterate what Jerry said, go out there, not just the MLG forums, not just the Game Battles forums, not just those sites, but everywhere. Everyone is trying to help. We're all in this together, like it's been said a ton. Go to www-gaming.com, go to GOWNation.net, go to myeg.net, go everywhere and support. We all have to work together, and I think this has really helped provide a lot of information for everybody. And so with that, it's time to go to work now. We'll see you next time.
Yeah, most definitely, guys. Once again, I'm going to sound a little bit redundant here. I want to give a big shout out once again to DJ Wheat, Sir Scoots, the people from Live on 3, and everyone else that does live shows on the internet, because now having done one here ourselves, I see exactly what the work it takes to do this is, and I have a much greater respect for the people that do this, and I can't thank you guys enough for the work that you do to grow competitive gaming as a whole. Thank you so much. We are doing this just for the same reason. We want to see this grow. As we've said multiple times now, we're all in this together. It's redundant, but it bears repeating. Thank you so much for tuning in, everybody, and I cannot wait to continue doing the show with your support and give you guys a better product as we continue. Thank you so much for tuning in.
And one last final word I want to leave you all with is maybe this should be our phrase moving forward. Collaboration, not competition. Maybe that's how we should look at one another. Collaboration, not competition. Thank you, good night, and I really appreciate all being a part of the show. Have a good night, everyone.